Hello everyone and welcome to the fighter class version. Before we jump in though, I just want to say that the fighter is obviously a super solid martial class. It always kind of has been. Kind of one of the go-to really when it comes to playing a martial. And I would say probably one of the ones that people multi-class the most with, having that kind of foundational kind of core class being in the fighter, giving all those kind of awesome proficiencies that you can utilize to be on the front lines, whether it be with weapons and armor, and then additionally with some of the awesome features of action surge and all these different things that you can really do to kind of stay in the fight and kind of be a front line. However, I do think that unfortunately the fighter did succumb to the fact that if you really didn't choose Battle Master as your subclass, then you kind of fell a little bit lower down on the power scaling. I do think that there aren't a whole lot of subclasses for the fighter that could really be held to the same diversity and kind of skill set expansion that the Battle Master had. And so with the Unearthed Arcana and then the 2024 version of the fighter, they did a really good job expanding them. I do like that they made the fighter, and this is also the same kind of for the barbarian, but they made the martials in various ways a lot more expanded, both in RP and then outside of RP. So obviously they expanded on their tool set in combat, but then they also made it so these martial classes are getting features that are allowing them to do a lot more in terms of just like interacting with NPCs and the world as in general. But unfortunately, I was looking and kind of hoping that they would do what I was hoping that what I was looking for with the revision of the fighter. And though they lifted it up in a good spot, I still had a lot that I wanted to incorporate. And so let's go and jump into that, and we'll go ahead and go over everything that I added and kind of made this now overall more well-rounded fighter. And I think that you're gonna go ahead and enjoy. So let's do it. All right, so first things first, the one above me is going to be the Unearthed Arcana fighter that I actually took a lot of the source material from and built it into my fighter, which is over on that side. And so yeah, let's go and jump in here. So first things first, hit points are going to be the same. A lot of that, baseline things are the same. Hit points are the same. Proficiency is still going to be strength and con. Choose 2 skills from acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, and sight. A pretty good wider range there. Choice of 1 artisan's tools. I did end up adding that because I do think as a fighter, kind of as a martial class, you would have some sort of experience, whether it be leatherworking or mason or something along those lines. I think just being a fighter, you would kind of have a little bit of knowledge about those things. So I added that. You can go and choose one of those to kind of tailor it towards maybe some role-playing backstory stuff for your character. But then of course, all the armor, all the weapons. And so equipment is going to be similar to the way that they had it set up in the UA, where you basically can have a gold amount, or you can just choose the equipment below. And so I kept that. You obviously have a little bit of variation, whether it's the great sword or long sword, but ultimately it is going to be kind of a pretty simple lineup that you can have for your equipment there. All right, jumping into the class features. Level 1 fighting style. You've honed your martial prowess and gain a fighting style feat of your choice. Those feats have this feature as a prerequisite. Whenever you gain a fighter level, you can replace this feat you chose with a different fighting style feat. Super good. That's like archery, defense, dueling, great weapon fighter, protection, 2 weapon fighting. All those ones you get access to early on, which is always really good. And then I made it so that you can also adjust it as well as you level up. You can kind of go ahead and mess around with your options there, and just maybe your playstyle changes a little bit on as you progress with your character. So having some flexibility there is definitely good to have. Also, level 1 is to be second wind. You have a limited well of physical and mental stamina that you can draw on. As a bonus action, you can use it to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your constitution modifier plus your fire level. You can use this feature twice. You regain 1 expended use when you finish a short rest, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. When you reach certain fire levels, you gain more use of this feature, as shown in the second wind column of the fighter table. Super good. Before, second wind was just a 1 use out the gate, and then you kind of got a couple different uses, I believe, as you made your way down the line, at least for the 2014 version. And you might not have, actually, looking at it now. No, you only got 1 use, and that really kind of hardlines you when it comes to the back half of D&D. If you only can use that once, this second wind feature, though very good in the early games of D&D, is not very good as you progress. And so the fact that they have bumped that up, and as you look here at the table, you can actually have a total of 4 uses. Super good, a great addition, and you also get 1 back on a short rest. Actually, I believe that was already the same. Yeah, but you can get 1 back on a short rest, and then you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So that's super good. I like that adjustment there. So let's keep on. Actually, let's scroll with this here. All right. Weapon masteries. Your training with weapons allow you to use the mastery property of 3 kinds of weapons of your choice, which you have proficiency in. Whenever you gain a fighter level, you can replace one of your weapon mastery choices with a different one. When you reach certain fighter levels, you gain the ability to use the mastery properties of more kinds of weapons, as shown in the weapon mastery column of the fighter table. Weapon mastery is an awesome addition to D&D that Wizards of the Coast kind of debuted in their Unearthed Arcana and then obviously solidified and pushed it out in their 2024 version. I really like those. I have gone through, I have tweaked some of them and how they work and a lot of different things, which I'll probably make a video later on about. But I really like the weapon masteries. It gives a lot more to the marshals in terms of versatility in their combat ability. So it's super awesome. And so the fact that you get 3 out the gate is really good. And then once you... and then you can also replace it as you gain levels, so you can have that flexibility with the different weapons. Not too much flexibility. I wanted to make it so, you know, the choices you made, you had to at least stick with for a bit. But over that course of that level, you can RP ways that your character might be now proficient with a different weapon. So really good. Weapon masteries is super awesome for the martial classes and specifically the fighter. Level 2, action surge. You can push yourself well beyond your normal limits for a moment. On your turn, you can take 1 additional action, except the magic action. Once you use this feature, you can finish it. You must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. Action surge has honestly probably been one of the biggest things and one of the biggest kind of things lifting up the fighter in the past. I think the action surge is one of the best, I would say, features in the game. They did kind of bring it back a little bit. They made it so it can't be a magic action, which I do like that adjustment. I like the fact that you can't just, you know, just take a dip into fighter and then as a spellcaster be able to just shoot off 2 spells as an action. I like that there is some limitations to that. But overall still really good. Level 2, this is going to be a Unearthed Arcana feature that has made it to 2024. But Tactical Mind, you have a mind for tactics and getting the upper hand on and off the battlefield. When you fail an ability check, you can expend the use of your second wind to push yourself towards success. Rather than regaining hit points, you roll 1d10 and add the number rolled to the ability check, potentially turning it into a success. If the check still fails, the use of second wind isn't expended. Tactical Mind is such a cool way to expand the arsenal of the... I'd say expand the tool set of a martial class of the fighter. It's super good because now not only because in 2014 I would say the majority, if not all, of the class features were combat related in some capacity. Subclass might give you a little variation there, but for the most part, it was all combat. And I really like that they're kind of giving you the ability to use second wind, not only for this, you know, recovery of HP, but also where you can do it in role-playing situations. If maybe, you know, you failed something, you can now utilize this resource to push you over that. It just gives you so much more versatility with the resource that you're getting of second wind. And I think this is a big reason why, because of this is a big reason why you get 2 uses now. So you have a little bit of play with it. You know, you can use one in RP and then you can save one for combat or whatever it is. But I really, really like this, and so great addition from WotC here. Now, getting into some more of the homebrew features, and I say homebrew loosely. Before I jump into this progression here of the class, me and my friends, we've been playing some Star Wars 5e. At least the rule set for Star Wars 5e set in like a sci-fi game that my buddy is running, and I really like because in Star Wars 5e they incorporate maneuvers into classes baseline, and that is something I've always really liked. I've actually been kind of homebrewing this a little bit throughout the years in terms of just like giving my players the ability to have maneuvers based baseline into the class. And so level 2 combat superiority, you're getting now maneuvers just baked into the class, getting them as you know, right off the rip, and as you progress through, you're getting access to more maneuvers. Your dice pool is going from D4s all the way to D12s, and so it's a much more kind of across the character progression, rather than having to burn your whole subclass in order just to be able to kind of make the fighter feel like you have more versatility, to make it feel like you have more options. I like the fact that it's now baseline in there. That way you can play around a little bit more. You have now your subclass option that maybe you can now do a different subclass. Maybe you can do champion, or you can do the Eldritch Knight, or whatever it is in any of the other source books. And you now have the ability to just not have to just dump your subclass basically into one of the best ones that the fighter had. You now have it raw, and now you can go ahead and expand and make your fighter a little bit more unique than just always having to choose Battle Master. And so I will say, you'll kind of see a couple other Battle Master features into the fighter. I basically took the subclass, not in its necessarily in its entirety, but I did for the most part take a bunch of different features in there and put it into the fighter to give it more of that identity. I think all fighters, I mean, as the name implies, you're a fighter. You know how to, you know, work your way around the battlefield. You have this ability to kind of learn these different styles of fighting, and you can utilize those to your advantage. And one thing I really like too, and I saw this in Star Wars 5e, and I'm seeing it now too with the maneuvers, is you can there are options to make it so that you can add your maneuver dice, your superiority dice to certain checks, and we'll go into all that a little bit. I'll show you an example towards the end, but let's go and keep moving on here. Level 2, combat superiority. Alright, so your experience on the battlefield has honed your fighting techniques. You learn maneuvers that are fueled by special dice called superiority dice. Maneuvers, you learn one maneuver of your choice from the maneuver options section listed at the end of this class's description. Many maneuvers enhance an attack in some way. You can only use one maneuver per attack. You learn additional maneuvers of your choice as you gain fire levels outlined in the table below. Whenever you gain a fire level, you can replace one of your known maneuvers for a different one. Superiority dice. You have 2 superiority dice, which are d4s. A superiority die is expended when you use it to fuel a maneuver. You regain all expended superiority dice when you finish a short or long rest. You gain additional superiority die, and the size of the superiority die becomes greater as you gain fire levels outlined in the table below. And then your saving throws. If a maneuver requires a saving throw, the DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength or dexterity modifier, your choice. And you can see here I have a table outlining essentially the progression of combat superiority throughout the entirety of the class. And I like this too because you have access to the maneuvers, but not at the same strength that the subclass gave you. And so you're kind of seeing this slow progression over the course of time where at some point, you are back up at those D8 range, but then you can surpass that and continue and make it even better because, like I was mentioning before, in the back half of D&D, you kind of need some of these features to keep pace or else they just kind of fall to the wayside or don't feel like they're as impactful. So this does progress throughout, and it does get better. It does stay kind of, throughout the many tiers of D&D. Moving on to level 3, fighter subclass. You get a fighter subclass of your choice. Alright, nothing changed there. Level 4 is going to be ability score improvement. Level 5, extra attack. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. That is the same. Tactical shift, however, whenever you activate your second wind with a bonus action, you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. Which that is going to be, of course, in the UA. Took that super kind of cool little additional tack on there for second wind in terms of making it even better in combat. Because I will say, in combat, it kind of sucks when you use second wind and you have to stay where you are and you just start getting, you see your ass beat again. Like you burn your bonus action to heal, and then immediately after that you get that HP taken right back. So it is nice that you can now utilize this the second wind feature to make a move in combat and actually separate yourself from maybe whatever it is that's harming you. So that's really good. Level 6, ability score improvement, that is going to be the same. Level 7 is going to be a subclass feature, that is also the same. Level 7, fatigue suppression. This is going to be a homebrewed feature here. You've learned how to push past your limits and work through your exhaustion and fatigue in order to achieve victory. Whenever you use your second wind feature to regain hit points, you can now choose to also negate the effects of up to 3 levels of exhaustion. The duration of this feature is dependent on how many levels of exhaustion you currently have accrued. Suppressing 1 level has a duration of an hour, 2 levels is 30 minutes, 3 levels is 10 minutes. If you have more than 3 levels of exhaustion, your total is reduced by 3 until the duration expires. Once the duration expires, you return to your normal levels and can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. There's a couple different reasons why I added this. One, I like the idea that these martial kind of classes can push past their natural limits in a different way other than magic. Because I feel like primary casters or even half casters, full casters, half casters, they have a lot of ways they can kind of push through scenarios, push past their limits, do some awesome stuff. And so I do like that, I do like the idea that some of these martial classes, they can push back their physical limits through various class features, and it kind of shows that prowess in a different way, and I really like that. And not only that, but I also like to, I'm trying to incorporate exhaustion a little bit more into my games. I think exhaustion is a really cool mechanic, but I do think that I did rework the entirety of it. Instead of it being the normal D&D exhaustion table, I've adjusted it a bit so it's a little bit more, I'd say forgiving, but essentially I pushed it out, so instead of 6 levels, it's 10 and all these different things. But I can highlight that potentially in a different video, but I do like giving creatures exhaustion just from the main point of like role playing wise. It's like, you know, you're pushing your character past its limits, and so now you're suffering kind of these different effects. And I wanted the idea that this exhaustion kind of scale would be so that, you know, you can accrue a couple different levels before, or you can, you know, maybe accrue 1, 2, 3 before you really start to feel some severe effects. And that way it kind of feels like this more gradual mechanic that does kind of, you know, it's showing that your character is succumbing to, you know, various encounters, and that you're kind of seeing the wear and tear on their body. But I like the fact that through that, then there's certain features that kind of push through there and suppress that in a way, or negate it. For instance, kind of shout out to a little bit ahead of time, the Ranger. They have a feature that we'll get to at some point, and we'll discuss that. But yeah, that's kind of the reason behind this one. So yeah, moving on. Level 8 is going to be the ability score improvement. Awesome. Level 8 is going to be Know Your Enemy. This is going to be a version. I believe it's going to be... Yeah, Know Your Enemy. It's going to be a version of the Battle Master feature here. So your combat sense and understanding has developed to the point of being able to read and learn an adversary's defenses. As a bonus action, you can discern the strengths and weaknesses of a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. You know what damage immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities that creature has, if any. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. You can also restore use of this feature by expending 1 superior die, no action required. You get a second use of this feature at 11th level and a third at 15th level. So kind of a, I would say almost an improved version of the Know Your Enemy. I kind of expanded upon it in various ways, but I really like the idea that this martial class is so tuned into combat and into battle that they can, using kind of body language, using their insight, their intuition, that they can read certain either strengths or weaknesses of a creature. I really like that. It kind of gives no spell allows you to do this, and so this really gives the fighter an edge in combat and a really good resource that they can utilize and bring to the table. That's not necessarily just magic. It's a cool feature that gives the fighter more of an identity in terms of being a master of combat. So adding that in makes it just kind of give the fighter a lot more of a core identity there. So that's super cool. Level 9, Indomitable. This is going to be a 2014 feature. It's pretty much the same. Your Indomitable fighting spirit is drawn out of you in moments of dire necessity. If you fail a saving throw, you can reroll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. If you do so, you must use a new roll, and you can't use this feature until you finish a long rest. You get a second use of this feature at 13th level and a third at 17th level. Moving on here, Master of Armaments. This is actually going to be a new feature introduced in the Unearthed Arcana, and this is actually kind of following the curtails of the weapon masteries, and so I kept it here. Level 9, Master of Armaments. Your constant drilling and honing of your skills has made you a master of weapons. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can choose any of the kinds of weapon masteries you're using and replace the mastery property of each with another mastery property. The chosen kind of weapon must qualify for the new property. For example, you can replace the longsword sap property with the push property. These property changes apply only for you, and the changes end for you when you finish your long rest. Very good. I really like the I really like this feature. I like the weapon masters, of course, but I really like this feature because it now gives the fighter even more things to play with. It lets them specialize even, you know, more so in terms of how they use their weapons, and it's really just capitalizing on that master of the blade, you know, and that master of combat. So super awesome like that. Subclass 10th level, same thing. Level 11 is going to be 2 extra attacks. Level 12 is going to be ability score improvement. Level 13, study attacks. You masterfully study your opponents and learn from each attack you make. If you make an attack roll against a creature and miss, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. Yeah, this is actually going to be an additional feature that the Unearthed Arcana has added into it. So that's super cool. I like the idea that, you know, you're learning immediately now, quickly on your mistakes, and you're able to use that by just making your next attack have an advantage on it. And I really like the features that they're adding in terms of just giving the class more of that like core identity, RP almost aspect to it, of like you truly are a master combatant. You're learning, you know, as you're progressing through the class, you're learning more and more about battle and how to utilize, you know, how to utilize strategy, how to utilize different weapons. It's just so cool. I really like where the fighter is, and especially with the maneuvers being added into it baseline, the fighter is now such an awesome option to choose. And I would say it's even up there now, and it's even competing pretty well against the primary casters. And we're not even done, so let's keep going here. Level 14, It's going to be the ability score improvement. Level 15 is going to be a subclass feature. Level 16, ability score improvement. Level 17, action surge improvement. You can now do it twice per short or long rest. Level 18 is going to be subclass feature. Level 19 is going to be ability score improvement. And a 20th level capstone, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, this right here is kind of a, you know, it's nothing necessarily super unique or introducing anything new, but it is allowing you to kind of, it's building upon not only your subclass that you've chosen, but also some of the previous abilities that you selected, which is really good. Having 2 action surges is really good. And I mean, the fighter is also one of the few classes, I think maybe if not the only class, that gets as many ability score improvements as it does. I believe it gets 6, and so that is more than any other class. And so the fact that in the back half here, you can really start to kind of customize and really start to either choose a lot of skills that you want to bump up and make yourself even more lethal or hardy or whatever it is, or you can really start to choose feats. And in the back half of this D&D, you know, those feats will really come into play and really handy. And so that's a really good kind of block of ability to kind of play with and flesh out your character. But then the 20th level, I will say the 20th level, having 3 extra attacks on your attack action is really good. And this is the same capstone for the 2014. However, I mean, if you've watched some of the other videos, you have seen that that I've been trying to make the capstone really something to seek and look forward to, and kind of almost keep you hardlined in a class. I want the 20th level capstone to feel like if you stick with a class all the way through, you should be getting something awesome. And so, though 3 extra attacks is really good, I wanted to make sure I expanded upon that and made it more than just that. So, Master Combatant, years of combat and strategy have made you the ultimate combatant, vanquishing even the toughest of adversaries. You gain the following benefits. Master the Blade. Your strength or dexterity, your choice, score increases by 2, and its new maximum is now 22. Unyielding Flourish. Your extra attack feature now confers 3 attacks rather than just 2. Really good. Superior Insight. When you use your Know Your Enemy feature, you also learn the score of 1 stat from the following list: Strength, Dex, or Con. Legendary Maneuver. Your martial mastery and superior fighting sense allows you to push yourself beyond your bodily limits to perform a maneuver with heightened lethality. You can perform any maneuver from the maneuver options list and feel it with a d20 instead of your normal size superiority die. This feature does not expend the use of your superiority die. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So awesome. So Master the Blade, pushing you beyond that normal threshold, getting you up there past the 20 capstone there, making you feel like you are truly above, you know, anybody else, and that you are truly a master of what you do. The Unyielding Flourish, you know, sticking to that really awesome extra attack. I mean, you get attack more now than any other class with your extra with your attack actions. So just be able to get in there and dish out a lot of damage is awesome. Superior Insight, being able to read your opponents, not only in the sense of like what their resistances, immunities, or their vulnerabilities are, but then now actually kind of learning a raw stat is just a cool way to, and you can RP that as a DM, RP that in a way that, you know, you can really just kind of let the fighter shine in a moment to be able to discern and read their enemy, you know, through body language, whatever it is. Just really kind of cool RP. And Legendary Maneuver, I just think it's so cool. It'd be so cool to be able to just, you know, I mean, a D20, you don't really roll a D20 for anything outside of, obviously, you know, skill checks, but no, like, feature really does that. And so being able to roll like a 16 or 18 or something just outrageous on one of your maneuvers, I just thought would be super fun. And not only that, but then now you can also you can choose any maneuver. It doesn't have to be previously selected. You can just choose any maneuver and do it, and it just goes to show, you know, you're just master of combat, your expertise in you know, being able to manipulate your body or the blade or your opponent really in combat, and being able to just kind of pull off this insane feat. I just think it'd be super cool and to make for like kind of awesome kind of moments in combat for the fighter. I think that a lot of the spellcasters have spells that really lift them up and be able to do that in various ways, and so it's just, I think that'd be like just a fun moment for the fighter to be able to have as a highlight. So yeah, that's about it for the primary kind of core features, but I do want to scroll down. If you see here, you can now see the maneuver options are listed after the class. You can see that there are plenty of options here, but going back to what I was saying with the ability to utilize maneuvers to do something outside just combat, there is an example here. I'll scroll all the way down. It is going to be tactical assessment. It's just one example. There's a couple different maneuvers that do this, but essentially tactical assessment is when you make a history, investigation, or insight check, you can expend 1 superiority die and add that die to the ability check. And so there's certain maneuvers that you can choose that, kind of flesh out your character in a cool way to give insight as to kind of who they are, just as a tactician and on the battlefield, but also in in ways that now they could utilize maneuver and superiority dice outside of combat. Say you're in pretty RP heavy section of the story. You're not just having a resource left unused by not being in any combat. You can now utilize these various maneuvers to be able to give you a bump. And you don't necessarily have to drain from the resource of Second Wind. It kind of gives you a little bit of wiggle room there to be able to either do one or the other, depending on what it is. So, but yeah, all the maneuvers are there. But that is essentially it for the fighter. I really, really like where the fighter is now. I really think that with the Unearthed Arcana, with the 2024 kind of updates that the Wizards of the Coast made, and then being able to add what I really felt like was the last missing piece for the fighter. I think superiority dice, maneuvers, or combat superiority with the maneuvers and all of that. I just think that was the last thing that the fighter needed to make it a just fundamentally very, very good class and hold its weight against half casters, primary casters, or even its fellow martial classes. I think that it now just has such a fun, diverse, and expanded tool set that, I mean, you can honestly choose this and you just have so many things that you can do with it that, when all your buddies are casting spells, you don't feel so left out because you'll be out there on the battlefield just swinging your blade, doing all these crazy maneuvers and just having your own kind of style of fun. So, but yeah, that's going to be about it. If you want access to this PDF, this file, it will be in the description of the video, so make sure you check that out. I did use this awesome website called the Homebrew, which basically makes it so you can build out, files in the format of a D&D, essentially a D&D class, D&D kind of style handbook format. And if you have, if you like what you saw, if you have any constructive feedback or anything that maybe you think that the fighter should have added to it, or maybe some adjustments to certain things, feel more than free to leave those in the comments. That's always appreciated, of course. And so, but yeah, that's about it for fighter. So I guess I'll see you in the next video.